The Velothi had conquered 17 star systems over 3,000 years. They were the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Their ships could destroy planets. Their soldiers stood 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin like armor. They had never lost a war. They did not know what defeat felt like. When their sensors found radio signals coming from a small blue planet called Earth, they saw an easy target. The humans were fighting each other over land and money and ideas. They had nuclear weapons pointed at their own cities. They seemed determined to destroy themselves. Supreme Commander Kethver looked at the intelligence reports and laughed. This would be the easiest conquest in Velothi history. He took his warship to Earth and entered orbit on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. The message he sent was simple. Surrender everything. Give up your governments. Give up your weapons. Become part of the Velothi Dominion. You have 48 hours to agree. If you refuse, we will take your world by force. Admiral Lisa Monroe was drinking coffee in the Pentagon when the message arrived. She was 53 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. She had served in 3 wars and seen things that would break most people. Nothing surprised her anymore. She listened to the alien demands and set down her cup. "Well," she said to the room full of generals and politicians, "that is annoying." The president was a man named Daniel Ortiz. He had been a Marine before he entered politics. He called every world leader he could reach. The conversations were short. Everyone agreed on one thing. They would not surrender to aliens. The response went back to Commander Kethver 47 hours and 59 minutes after his ultimatum. It was a single word translated into 17 languages. All of them were insults. Kethver found this funny. These tiny creatures thought they could fight the Velothi. They had no idea what was coming. The first Velothi soldiers landed in Kansas. They chose it because it was flat and empty and far from major cities. They expected to set up a base and begin the conquest from there. They did not expect Harold Patterson. Harold was 74 years old. He had farmed the same land for 50 years. He had just finished paying off his mortgage the month before. When the alien ships landed in his wheat field, he did not run. He did not hide. He got in his pickup truck and drove straight toward them. "Those things are crushing my wheat," he told reporters later. "I worked too hard for some space monsters to ruin my field." Harold drove his truck into a group of Velothi soldiers. The impact killed 3 of them. Harold survived because his old truck was built like a tank. He crawled out of the wreck, picked up a piece of alien equipment that had fallen, and hit another soldier in the head with it. The Kansas National Guard arrived 20 minutes later. They had been moving into position since the alien message arrived. 3 Army divisions followed them. The battle lasted 6 hours. 17 Velothi soldiers died. Harold Patterson became the first human hero of the war. He spent the next 3 years giving speeches and selling signed photographs. He used the money to rebuild his wheat field. Commander Kethver received the report and stopped laughing. This was not supposed to happen. Primitive species always surrendered after seeing Velothi power. They did not fight back. They certainly did not win. He sent more soldiers. Then more. Then more again. Admiral Monroe watched the invasion spread across the globe. She saw cities burn and people die. She saw things that made her want to give up. But she did not give up. She got to work. She called a meeting of military leaders from 30 countries. Americans and Russians sat next to each other. Chinese and Japanese officers shared coffee. Old enemies became new allies because they had a common problem. "We can argue about who gives orders later," Monroe told them. "Right now, we kill aliens. Does anyone disagree?" No one disagreed. The Earth Defense Coalition formed in 3 days. It was the largest military alliance in human history. Every country contributed what they could. Soldiers, weapons, vehicles, supplies. Rich nations sent money. Poor nations sent fighters. Everyone gave something. The Velothi had better technology. Their weapons were more powerful. Their armor was stronger. Their ships were faster. But humans had something the Velothi did not. Understand, humans have been practicing for this moment their entire existence. Every war in human history had been training. Every battle, every conflict, every fight in every back alley of every city on Earth had prepared humanity for this. They knew how to kill. They knew how to survive. They knew how to win even when winning seemed impossible. Private Maria Santos was 19 years old when her unit was attacked in the Rocky Mountains. She watched her sergeant die in a flash of light. She watched 3 friends disappear in the same second. She should have run. Anyone would have run. Maria did not run. She screamed words her mother would have hated. She picked up a fallen rifle and charged at the nearest alien. She was 5'2" and weighed 120 pounds. The Velothi soldier was 8 feet tall and could lift a car. It did not matter. Maria shot him in the face, took his weapon, and shot 2 more before her squad recovered and finished the fight. When asked what she was thinking, Maria shrugged. I was angry. The Velothi did not understand anger. They thought it made soldiers stupid. They thought it led to mistakes. They did not realize that for humans, anger was fuel. Commander Kethver sent a message to the Dominion leadership. He needed more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. The humans were not behaving like conquered species. They were fighting back. They were adapting. They were learning. The Dominion sent 3 more battle groups. Kethver spread them across 6 continents. He expected to crush human resistance within weeks. Admiral Monroe smiled when she heard about the reinforcements. More aliens met more targets. She activated a network of hidden bunkers that humans had built during the Cold War, when they were preparing to destroy themselves with nuclear weapons. Those bunkers had been waiting for decades. Now they had a purpose. The first year of the war was brutal. Millions of people died. Cities fell. Countries burned. But humanity did not break. They bent, they bled, they suffered, but they did not break. In the darkness of that first year, humans discovered something important. They were not as divided as they thought. When faced with extinction, all the things that made them different stopped mattering. Skin color, religion, nationality, politics. None of it mattered when aliens were trying to kill everyone. For the first time in history, humanity fought as one species. And they began to win. The Velothi ground campaign stopped moving forward after the first week. This had never happened before. On every world they conquered, the aliens broke the spirit of the native species within days. Fear was their greatest weapon. Once a species understood Velothi power, they gave up. Humans refused to understand. Commander Kethver studied the reports from the battlefield and could not make sense of them. Human soldiers attacked when they were outnumbered. They fought when they had no chance of winning. They charged at Velothi positions with weapons that could not penetrate alien armor, screaming and shooting until they died or somehow succeeded. The strangest part was that sometimes they succeeded. Lieutenant Commander Gregory Cole was a submarine officer when the invasion began. His vessel, the USS Virginia, had been sitting silent beneath the Atlantic Ocean for 2 weeks. Every submarine in the world was doing the same thing. Waiting, watching, preparing. Velothi had scanned for human ships on the surface. They had looked for aircraft in the sky. They had not thought to look beneath the water. Why would they? No species they had conquered used underwater warfare. It seemed primitive and pointless. On a cold night in November, Cole received the order he had been waiting for. Attack. 37. Submarines from 12 different nations fired their weapons at the same moment. Torpedoes streaked through dark water toward Velothi landing ships floating in harbors around the world. The aliens had shields that could stop energy weapons and deflect attacks from space. They had no defense against explosives that swam up from below. 7 Velothi landing ships exploded that night. 3,000 alien soldiers died without ever seeing what killed them. Cole sent a short message to Admiral Monroe. Targets destroyed. Returning to patrol depth. The Velothi began to adapt. They put sensors in the water to detect submarines. They modified their shields to resist physical impacts. They learned to watch the oceans, but humans adapted faster. Dr. Patricia Gomez was a scientist working in New Mexico when the aliens arrived. She studied materials and energy systems. She was brilliant but unknown, one of thousands of researchers doing quiet work in small laboratories. 3 months after the invasion began, she took apart a crashed Velothi scout craft. She wanted to understand how it worked. She wanted to know what made alien technology better than human technology. What she found changed everything. The Velothi power source was advanced, but not magical. It used principles that human scientists already understood. The difference was in the materials and the design. Velothi engineers had thousands of years to perfect their work. Gomez had 3 months. She built a prototype weapon in her garage. It was ugly and unstable and almost killed her twice during testing. But it worked. The beam it produced could cut through Velothi armor like paper. She called Admiral Monroe directly. "I can give you a way to kill them," she said. "How fast can you get here?" Monroe sent a helicopter. 6 months later, human soldiers carried the first Gomez rifles into battle. Captain Nathan Brooks led the first field test outside the ruins of Dallas, Texas. His unit of Army Rangers faced a Velothi armored column that had destroyed everything in its path for weeks. Tanks, aircraft, missiles? Nothing had stopped them. The battle lasted 12 minutes. Every Velothi soldier died. Brooks sent a message to command. "Works as advertised. Make more of these, now." Human factories switched to war production overnight. Assembly lines that had built cars and televisions now built weapons. Workers pulled double shifts and then triple shifts. Grandmothers operated machinery. Teenagers loaded trucks. Everyone who could work, worked. The Velothi noticed the change. Their intelligence officers reported that human military equipment was improving at an impossible rate. Weapons that should have taken years to develop appeared in months. Technology that seemed beyond human capability showed up on battlefields across the world. Commander Keffer finally understood his mistake. He had looked at human history and seen a species that wasted its potential fighting itself. He had not realized that all that fighting had made humans very, very good at war. More importantly, he had not understood human creativity. The Velothi were conquerors, not inventors. They took technology from the species they defeated and improved it slowly over centuries. Humans took alien technology and reimagined it in weeks. The war entered its second phase. Humans stopped just surviving and started fighting back. Sergeant Maria Santos led raids behind enemy lines. Her squad moved through destroyed cities like ghosts, hitting Velothi supply convoys and disappearing before reinforcements arrived. She had been promoted 4 times in 8 months. She had also been wounded 3 times and refused to stay in the hospital. "I can heal while I fight," she told the doctors. "Give me some bandages and get out of my way." Her soldiers loved her. They would follow her anywhere. They did follow her into battles that should have been impossible, and they kept winning. Admiral Monroe coordinated the global resistance from a bunker deep beneath the mountains of Colorado. She slept 3 hours a night and survived on coffee and determination. Her staff worried about her health. She told them to worry about winning the war instead. The tide was turning. Slowly, painfully, one battle at a time, humanity was pushing back. The Velothi controlled the sky and space above Earth. Their ships could bomb any city they chose. But they needed soldiers on the ground to actually conquer the planet. And those soldiers were dying faster than the Dominion could replace them. Commander Kethfer requested permission to begin orbital bombardment. If he could not take Earth with soldiers, he would burn it clean and claim the ashes. The Dominion had done this before to difficult worlds. It was wasteful but effective. The message went to the Velothi High Command. Permission granted. Prepare for planetary sterilization. Admiral Monroe learned about the plan from a captured Velothi officer. The alien had been convinced to cooperate after a long conversation with General Rosa Delgado, who had a talent for persuasion that frightened even her allies. Monroe gathered her staff and gave them the news. The Velothi would burn Earth to the ground within the week unless they were stopped. Then we stopped them, she said simply. We have been building ships in secret for 6 months. Time to use them. The first human space fleet launched from hidden bases around the world. 17 warships, crude and rough compared to Velothi vessels, but armed with Gomez weapons and crewed by people who refused to die. Captain Cole commanded from the bridge of the Defiant. The name had been chosen by internet vote because Admiral Monroe believed in letting people feel involved. She regretted this when several less appropriate names nearly won. The fleet rose through Earth's atmosphere and met the Velothi in orbit. The battle lasted 6 hours. 9 alien ships became burning wreckage. Humanity lost 2 vessels. Cole sent 4 words to Monroe. Space is ours now. Commander Kethfer watched his bombardment fleet die and realized the war had changed. These humans were supposed to be primitives. They were not supposed to build spaceships. They were not supposed to win battles in orbit. He ordered a full retreat from Earth's surface. His remaining forces pulled back to their ships and prepared to leave. The invasion had failed, but humanity was not finished with the Velothi. Not even close. 1 year after the Velothi arrived, humanity launched its first major counterattack. General Rosa Delgado had spent 12 months building an army. Not just any army. The largest military force humans had ever assembled. Soldiers from every nation trained together in hidden bases. They learned to fight as one unified force. They practiced until they could predict each other's movements without speaking. Delgado was a small woman with dark hair and eyes that seemed to look through people. She spoke quietly and rarely smiled. Her soldiers were terrified of disappointing her. They would have followed her into hell. She chose April 15th for the attack. When asked why, she admitted it was American Tax Day. If we're going to make the aliens pay, she said, we should be funny about it. Her staff did not laugh. They were too nervous. The plan was insane. Attack everywhere at once. Hit every Velothi position on every continent at the same time. Give them no chance to regroup or reinforce. It should not have worked. The Velothi still had superior numbers and technology. They still held most of the major cities. They still controlled orbital space, despite the growing human fleet. But Delgado understood something the aliens did not. Humans were tired of hiding. They were tired of losing. They wanted to fight back, and that desire was a weapon more powerful than any technology. The attack began at dawn. In Europe. Combined forces pushed across the Rhine River in 2 days. French and German soldiers fought alongside Americans and British troops. Old rivalries meant nothing now. They were all human, and that was enough. In Asia, Chinese and American units advanced together for the first time in history. Japanese and Korean forces provided support. The Velothi had occupied Shanghai for 6 months. It fell in 48 hours. In Africa, regional armies used tactics the aliens had never seen. They knew the land. They knew the heat and the dust and the endless savannas. The Velothi had maps and sensors. Humans had generations of knowledge passed down from ancestors. who had survived on this continent for thousands of years, Maria Santos, now a lieutenant, led her squad through the ruins of Los Angeles. The city had been a Velothi stronghold since the early days of the invasion. Thousands of aliens defended it. Artillery, armor, air support. Everything pointed at anyone who tried to enter. Santos entered anyway. She knew Los Angeles. She had grown up there, in a small apartment in East LA with her mother and two brothers. She knew every street, every alley, every drainage tunnel that ran beneath the city. The Velothi had maps. Santos had memories. Her squad moved underground, through tunnels the aliens did not know existed. They emerged behind enemy lines and began destroying command posts, supply depots, communication centers. The Velothi could not find them. Every time they sent soldiers to hunt Santos down, she disappeared. It took 3 days to clear the city. Thousands of Velothi died. Santos lost 4 soldiers. She remembered every one of their names. The counterattack succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. Within a month, the Velothi had lost half their territory on Earth. Their forces retreated toward the coasts, trying to reach their landing zones and evacuate. Admiral Monroe did not let them leave. The human space fleet had grown to 40 ships. Not as many as the Velothi had, but better armed and crewed by people fighting for their home. Captain Cole led the blockade of Earth orbit. Any alien ship that tried to escape was destroyed. Commander Kethver watched his army die from his command ship high above the planet. He had been a military officer for 200 years. He had conquered 12 worlds. He had never experienced anything like this. The humans were not just winning. They were hunting. They tracked Velothi units with terrifying precision. They anticipated moves before they happened. They fought with a fury that seemed endless. Kethver sent a final message to the Dominion. "They underestimate themselves," he wrote. "We made the same mistake. These creatures have spent their entire history practicing for war. Every conflict, every battle, every violent moment in their past prepared them for us. We did not invade a primitive world. We woke something ancient and terrible." He ordered his remaining ships to attack the human fleet. It was a desperate move, but he had no other choice. If he could break through, some of his people might survive. The battle lasted 8 hours. The Velothi fought hard. They were warriors, after all, and they did not surrender easily. But humans had learned their tactics, studied their weaknesses, and built weapons specifically designed to kill them. Kethver's flagship took 17 direct hits. The bridge exploded around him. In his final moment, he felt something he had never experienced before: respect. These small, fragile creatures had beaten him. They had beaten the greatest military power in the galaxy. They had done it in less than 2 years. Admiral Monroe received word of the victory while standing in the ruins of New York City. The Statue of Liberty was missing her head, blown off by orbital bombardment in the first week of the war. The skyline was broken and burned, but people were returning. They were cleaning the streets and searching the rubble and beginning to rebuild. Life was coming back. Monroe looked at the message confirming Kethver's death and felt nothing. No joy, no satisfaction. Just exhaustion. The war was not over. The Velothi Dominion still existed, far away across the stars. They would come back eventually. They always did. "We need to make sure they never try this again," she said to her staff. "Start planning the counter-invasion." Her officers stared at her. Counter-invasion. She wanted to take the war to the aliens. She wanted to attack them in their own space, their own systems, their own worlds. "Ma'am," one of them said carefully, "we just barely survived their invasion. Are we really ready to invade them?" Monroe smiled for the first time in months. "We have been ready for thousands of years. We just needed a direction to point ourselves. The Earth Defense Coalition became the United Earth Defense Force. Every nation contributed ships, soldiers, and resources. For the first time in history, humanity had a unified military command structure. One army, one navy, one fleet. All of them pointed at the stars. Dr. Gomez and her team worked around the clock, improving human technology. They cracked faster-than-light travel using captured Velothi drive systems, then made improvements the aliens had never imagined. Human ships would be faster than anything the Dominion had. Maria Santos received a promotion she did not want. Major. She tried to refuse. She was told it was not optional. Earth needed heroes, and she had become one whether she liked it or not. I just want to fight, she told General Delgado. You will, Delgado promised. But now you'll fight with more soldiers behind you. The first human expeditionary fleet launched 18 months after the liberation of Earth. 42 warships, 10 troop carriers, over 100,000 soldiers. Their mission was simple. Find the Velothi. Show them what humans could do. Make sure they never threatened Earth again. Captain Cole stood on the bridge of the Defiant and watched Earth shrink behind them. She had been born on that planet, raised there, trained there. Now she was leaving it to attack an enemy 3 light years away. Jump when ready, she ordered. The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel. Heading for Valos' space, the war was about to enter a new phase. And humans were just getting started. The first human fleet arrived in Velothi space on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. They kept track of Earth time because it reminded them of home. It reminded them why they were fighting. Captain Cole brought the Defiant out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of an alien solar system. Her sensors showed a moon orbiting a massive gas giant. The moon had been turned into a military base, a staging point for Velothi fleets heading toward Earth and other conquest targets. 42 human warships faced a Velothi garrison of 60 vessels. The odds were bad. Cole did not care about odds. All ships, attack formation, she ordered. We did not come this far to be careful. The battle was brutal and fast. Human ships were smaller than Velothi vessels, but more maneuverable. They darted through enemy formations, firing Gomez weapons that cut through alien armor. The Velothi tried to fight back with their superior firepower, but humans had learned their tactics. Every move the aliens made, humans had seen before. 4 hours after the battle began, the last Velothi ship exploded. The human fleet had lost 6 vessels and 2,000 soldiers. The Velothi had lost everything. Major Nathan Brooks led the ground assault on the moonbase. He'd been fighting aliens for 2 years now. He had watched friends die. He had killed more enemies than he could count. Nothing surprised him anymore. His soldiers landed in drop pods that screamed through the thin atmosphere like meteors. They hit the ground running, weapons ready, moving toward the base entrance with practiced precision. The Velothi defenders fought hard. They were protecting their home territory now, not attacking someone else's world. That made them more dangerous. Desperate soldiers took risks that calm soldiers would not, but Brooks' people were desperate too. They remembered what the Velothi had done to Earth. They remembered the cities burned, the people killed, the families torn apart. Every soldier in the assault force had lost someone to the invasion. This was payback. The base fell in 3 hours. Brooks accepted the surrender of the garrison commander, a tall Velothi officer named Vorth, who seemed confused that humans were not killing everyone. Your species shows mercy? Vorth asked through a translator device. Brooks thought about it. Sometimes, he said, when it's earned. Your soldiers fought well. They get to live. This was the human way. Fight hard, win completely, then show kindness to the defeated. It was a confusing combination for species that expected either total war or total peace. Dr. Patricia Gomez traveled with the fleet as a civilian advisor. Her official job was to study captured technology and find new ways to improve human weapons. Her unofficial job was to understand the enemy. She spent hours talking to Velothi prisoners. Most refused to speak at first. They expected torture, execution, the things their own people would have done to captured enemies. When humans gave them food and medical care instead, they did not know how to react. One young Velothi soldier finally agreed to talk. His name was Keth, no relation to the dead commander. He was barely an adult by his species standards, drafted into the military because the Dominion needed bodies to throw at humans. "Why do you fight so hard?" he asked Gomez. "You are small and weak. Your world is small and weak. You should have surrendered." Gomez smiled. "We do not surrender. It is not in our nature. But why? You could have lived as subjects of the Dominion. You would have had peace." "Peace under someone else's control is not peace," Gomez said. "It is just quiet slavery. We would rather die free than live as servants." Keth did not understand. His species had been conquerors for 3,000 years. They had forgotten what it meant to fight for freedom. They only knew how to fight for power. Gomez learned something important from these conversations. The Velothi were not evil. They were desperate. Their homeworld had been destroyed by a cosmic disaster thousands of years ago. They had become wanderers, taking what they needed from other species because they had no home to grow things themselves. This did not excuse what they had done. Millions of humans had died because of Velothi aggression. Cities had burned. Lives had been destroyed. Understanding an enemy did not mean forgiving them, but it opened new possibilities. Admiral Monroe received Gomez's reports and made a decision that would shape the future of humanity. She sent a message to the Velothi Dominion leadership. "We have defeated your invasion of Earth. We have destroyed your forward base. We are coming for your core systems next. You have two choices. Negotiate for peace or watch your civilization burn." The Dominion rejected her offer. They had been conquerors too long to accept demands from a species they still considered inferior, Monroe's. Response was swift and overwhelming. The second human fleet arrived in Velothi space 6 months after the first. 200 warships, built in shipyards across Earth that worked day and night to produce them. They spread through Dominion territory like fire through dry grass. Human forces did not attack civilian populations. They targeted military bases, shipyards, weapons factories. They destroyed the Velothi ability to make war while leaving their people alive. This was strategic, not merciful. Dead enemies could not surrender. Dead enemies could not be converted to allies. Living enemies who saw their military shattered might choose peace over extinction. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos commanded ground operations on 4 different Velothi worlds. She had come a long way from the angry teenager who charged at aliens in the Rocky Mountains. Now she led thousands of soldiers and made decisions that affected millions of lives. She still fought on the front lines when she could. Her officers worried about this. A commander of her rank should stay safe behind the lines, directing operations from a distance. Santos refused. "My soldiers need to see me," she said. "They need to know I am not asking them to do anything I would not do myself." Her soldiers loved her for this. They called her the Ghost of Earth because she appeared in the middle of battles without warning, killed enemies with terrifying efficiency, and disappeared before anyone could stop her. The Velothi learned to fear her name. Reports spread through their ranks about a human female who could not be killed, who fought like a demon, who destroyed entire units by herself. The truth was simpler. Santos was very good at her job, and she had been practicing for a long time. Captain Cole led the fleet that finally arrived at the Velothi capital world. 300 human ships surrounded a planet, That had been the heart of the Dominion for 3,000 years. The new Dominion leader, a female named Supreme Commander Valeth, contacted Cole directly. "You have won," she said. "What do you want?" Cole had been given authority to negotiate. Admiral Monroe trusted her judgment. "We want peace," she said. "Real peace, not a pause before the next war. We want the Dominion to stop conquering other species. We want your people to find a better way to live." Valeth was silent for a long moment. "And if we refuse?" Cole looked at her display, showing hundreds of human warships ready to attack. "Then your civilization ends today. Your choice." The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. They were tense and difficult. The Velothi had never negotiated with anyone before. They only knew how to demand surrender, but they were not stupid. They could see human ships above their cities. They could count the weapons pointed at their world. They understood that refusing meant death. In the end, they agreed to humanity's terms. The war was over. Admiral Monroe traveled to the Velothi capital to sign the peace treaty. She stood in a grand hall filled with alien dignitaries and human officers. The document she signed ended 3,000 years of Velothi conquest. "This is not punishment," she told the assembled crowd. "This is a chance. Your species has incredible strength and intelligence. Use it to build instead of destroy. We will help you find a new path." Some Velothi believed her. Others did not. It would take generations to change a culture built on conquest, but the first step had been taken. Humanity had won its first interstellar war. Now came the harder task of winning the peace. 5 years after the first Velothi ship entered Earth orbit, the galaxy was a very different place. The Velothi Dominion still existed, but it was no longer an empire of conquest. Human advisors worked with Velothi scientists to develop new technologies, new ways of living that did not require taking from others. The process was slow and painful. 3,000 years of cultural habits did not disappear overnight, but progress was real. Former Velothi soldiers learned new skills. Engineers who had built weapons of war now built tools for farming and construction. Ships that had carried invaders now carried traders and explorers. Admiral Lisa Monroe retired from military command 5 years after the war ended. She was 63 years old and tired in ways that sleep could not fix. She had led humanity through its greatest crisis and won. The United Earth government asked her to become humanity's first ambassador to the galactic community. She accepted because she was not good at sitting still. During her final years, she traveled to 17 different alien civilizations. Most of them had been watching humanity's war with the Velothi from a distance. Afraid to interfere, but fascinated by what they saw. A small species from a tiny world had defeated the greatest military power in the galaxy. They had done it in less than 5 years. And then, instead of becoming conquerors themselves, they had offered peace. The other species did not understand this. Their experience with powerful civilizations was simple. The strong took from the weak. That was how the galaxy worked. Monroe explained the human way to anyone who would listen. "We are not better than other species," she said at the first Galactic Peace Conference. "We have done terrible things to each other. War, slavery, cruelty. Our history is full of darkness." She paused and looked at the alien faces watching her. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had features no human word could describe. All of them were listening. "But we learned," she continued. "Slowly, painfully, we learned that cooperation is better than conquest. That helping others makes you stronger, not weaker. That the species who builds is greater than the species who destroys. We are still learning. We will probably never stop." The Velothi came to Earth and tried to teach us fear. Instead, they taught us unity. For the first time in our history, all humans work together. We discovered that our differences are small compared to what we share. She smiled, looking older and more tired than anyone in the room. We are not perfect. We will never be perfect. But we will always try to be better. That is the human way. General Rosa Delgado retired the same year as Monroe. She went back to her hometown in Texas and bought a small ranch. She spent her days riding horses and pretending to be a simple farmer. People still recognized her everywhere she went. She was the general who had led the counterattack that saved Earth. Schools taught her strategies. Military academies studied her campaigns. She was the most famous soldier in human history. Delgado did not like the fame. She had done her job, nothing more. Millions of other people had done the same thing. The farmers who fed the troops. The factory workers who built the weapons. The nurses who healed the wounded. They all deserve credit. She wrote a book about the war, telling the story from the perspective of ordinary people who had fought and suffered and won. It became the best-selling book in human history. She donated all the money to rebuilding cities destroyed during the invasion. When asked about her legacy, she shrugged. I did what needed to be done. Everyone did. That is how we won. Maria Santos, now a full colonel, commanded the first permanent human military base outside the solar system. It sat on a moon that had once been a Velothi staging point, now converted into a training facility and diplomatic center. She had tried to retire 3 times. Each time, something pulled her back. A crisis somewhere. A mission that needed her skills. A request from young soldiers who wanted to learn from the best. Santos accepted her fate. She was a warrior. She would always be a warrior. But the nature of her war had changed. Young Velothi came to her base to learn about humanity. They were curious about the species that had defeated their empire. Some were hostile at first, resentful of their loss. Santos treated them all the same way. With respect, with honesty, and with the willingness to fight if they caused trouble. Most of them became friends, or at least allies. They learned that humans were not demons or monsters. They were just people, complicated and flawed and stubborn, refusing to give up even when defeat seemed certain. The thing about us, Santos told one group of Velothi students, is that we never stop fighting. Even when there is no enemy, we fight ourselves. We fight to be better, to do more, to go further. You thought you were starting a war. You were just giving us something new to fight for. The young Velothi did not fully understand. Their culture was built on conquest and dominance. The idea of fighting to improve yourself was strange, but some of them began to learn. And that was enough for now. Captain Cole, now Admiral Cole, commanded the exploration vessel Horizon as it pushed beyond the boundaries of known space. The Velothi had mapped only a fraction of the galaxy during their 3,000 years of conquest. Humanity intended to map the rest. Her crew was mixed. Humans, reformed Velothi, and members of 3 other species who had joined the new alliance humanity was building. They argued constantly about everything from navigation routes to dinner menus. Cole loved every minute of it. This was what she had always wanted. Not war, but exploration. Not destruction, but discovery. The fighting had been necessary to get here. Now came the reward. Dr. Patricia Gomez founded the Institute for Interstellar Cooperation, dedicated to fostering peaceful relations between species. Her research on Velothi psychology and culture became the foundation for human diplomacy across the galaxy. She was 90 years old when she gave her final lecture at the Institute. Thousands of students from dozens of species filled the auditorium. Millions more watched through communication networks. When the Velothi came to Earth, she said, her voice still strong despite her age, we could have responded with hate. We could have destroyed them completely and felt justified in doing so. Instead, we chose to understand them. Understanding did not mean forgiveness. It meant possibility. She paused, looking at the faces watching her. Young and old, alien and human, all waiting for her words. Every species has darkness in its past. Cruelty, violence, conquest. The Velothi were not unique in this. Neither were humans. What matters is not where you have been. It is where you choose to go. She smiled. The same smile she had shown to frightened Velothi prisoners so many years ago. We choose hope. We choose cooperation. We choose the hard work of building something better instead of the easy satisfaction of tearing something down. That is what the Velothi never understood. When they came to Earth, they saw a species fighting itself and thought we were weak. They did not realize we were practicing. Every war, every conflict, every struggle in our history prepared us for the moment when we would finally have something worth fighting for together. Now we have that. Not just humans, but all of us. Every species in this room, every civilization in this alliance. We are building something that has never existed before. A galaxy united not by conquest, but by choice. The applause lasted for 10 minutes. When it finally died down, Gomez walked off the stage and into retirement. She spent her remaining years gardening, painting, and telling stories to her grandchildren about the war that had changed everything. The invasion had cost humanity millions of lives. Cities had been destroyed. Families had been shattered. The scars would take generations to heal fully, but humanity had gained something too. Unity, purpose, a place among the stars. The Velothi had declared war on Earth, expecting easy conquest. Instead, they had given humanity the push it needed to become something greater. Something that could not just survive among the stars, but thrive. In the end, the greatest military power in the galaxy had been defeated by a simple truth. Humans were not dangerous because they were strong. They were dangerous because they refused to quit. And now that they had stopped fighting each other, there was no limit to what they could achieve. The war was over. The future was just beginning, and humanity was ready.